Oh, WandaVision is just getting so good. If you are not watching the series, why aren't you? Why aren't you watching it yet? Now, I will admit that this episode, episode 4, is a little on the short side, and it is more of a perspective of, what's been happening outside of Wanda up until the point we know from episode 3. And I like all that because we finally get to see a little tidbit that I teased on Twitter. If you're not following me on Twitter, follow me on Twitter at just_McGill so you can see my tweets and understand what I'm talking about. So we're going to go through this spoiler review for episode 4 and a breakdown. So if you have not seen episode 4, stop right here, save this to your watch list, go back and watch the episode of Disney Plus, come back, let's get into it. So the episode starts off right after the events of the snap, and the snap I'm referring to is not the Thanos snap, I'm referring to the snap from Iron Man. So Iron Man sacrificed himself, he was able to use the Infinity Stones in a Iron Man gauntlet, snapped his fingers, and restored the people that Thanos snapped away. So in this beginning of this episode, we start off with Monica Rambeau herself being brought back, as well as a lot of other people in a hospital. And we obviously find out that her mom, Maria Rambeau, had passed away during the events of Monica being absent. We also learn that in that absence that her mom, Maria Rambeau, who we saw in Captain Marvel, has put in some stipulations to better protect Monica from harm, as any mother would, right? So we know that from that, a lot of events have happened, including one that we obviously don't know about. What the heck happened to Wanda? What happened to Wanda during this time? We're trying to figure out at the end of Avengers Endgame, the last time we see her after she's been snapped back to life is she's at the at Iron Man's funeral. That's where we see a lot of the Avengers. So from there, we don't know what really happens from that point on. Somehow I think maybe she has some grievances and she just, can't handle it. So she's kind of protects herself. That's what we think. But we start this episode with Monica Rambeau pretty much being re-snapped to life. Very, very sad, I feel like, because, her mom's not going to be here with her, so she's kind of on her own, but she knows that with her mom's spirit and protection, she's going to go on and just do what she needs to do. So we see that Sword is in place now, and we see the return of Jimmy Woo, who was last seen in Ant-Man and the Wasp. And so now we see him in this brace. I'm not going to say crossed over. I'm saying he's basically talking to some cops at Westview, New Jersey, at the city sign, investigating the missing persons case. So Monica Rambeau with Sword gets sent over to meet Jimmy and basically figure out who the missing people are. So they come to find out that there is this energy field, whatever you want to call it, around this town. And first rule I would say is do not touch. Do not touch. Don't ever touch things you don't know what they are, right? You need to learn that from Stargate, if you ever see Stargate. So basically she touches this and she gets sucked in, and you're like, okay. So from this point forward, it's kind of already foreshadowing that we are going to be doing this whole episode as from the Sword Monica Rambeau point of view, as far as what has happened throughout the episodes 1, 2, and 3, just from the Sword side. Like I said in the intro, I think this is kind of cool. In the process, this episode does get very meta. I would say I appreciate that on some level, because as you're going to see in what they do, they basically are going through the same process we're going through as viewers, like asking the same questions, thinking the same thoughts, having the same reactions. And we get some characters brought back in we haven't seen in a while that just kind of make it more of a great episode to watch. So what I mean by that is we get the return of Kat Dennings as Darcy, who we know from the Thor series, and she and Jimmy Woo are our comedic relief throughout the whole episode. So no need for a sitcom theme. We've got these two characters who make the episode very fun. So as I said, with these two characters, Monica being gone in basically Westview, the world that we don't know who created, they are going through the various characters that we have seen so far in the episodes, trying to figure out who they are, because they obviously know that all these people have gone missing, so they're trying to figure who they are. And so they, obviously between Jimmy and Darcy and the people of Sword, they figure out that they're all the characters that we've seen so far, with the exception of Agnes and Dottie, are actually real people. So they have real people with their characters inside the show. And so they're plastering their pictures up on the wall, and they're also writing on a whiteboard and asking questions like, how did this happen? Who's in control? Yada, yada, yada. And it's very kind of, reminiscent of like Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where, Charlie Day is trying to like figure out what's going on, who's controlling this, not that serious, but everybody's thinking it in their mind. So it's very meta, because we watched the first 3 episodes, and now we're talking about them from another perspective. Really cool. I think it was a smart idea that they did it that way. So from this, we also know that Darcy will basically figure out that through the CMBR waves, she can basically use an old television to watch the world that Wanda or whoever has created. And that's the sitcoms that we've been watching. And so throughout the whole episode, they basically go quickly through 1 through 3, all the way up until the point where we left off, where Monica has been thrown out of this world and back into the real world. It is here that the episode just gets so good. So it is here that we see from what we saw originally that was skipped. So as we know from all of the other episodes, every time something we would say is not what we would see as bad from Wanda's perspective, but in this episode we learn is actually S.W.O.R.D. trying to infiltrate this world, which is a good thing. Wanda basically, that's the rewind that happens, the blip. She basically is like, no, we're going to undo that. We're going to undo this. We're going to make it so it never happened. And so as, you know, Kat Dennings' character and Jimmy, they're watching on the outside, they see it kind of like just a quick blip on the screen. So it's as if nothing happened. But they're able to kind of see what happens. And we learn, guys, what we've already been thinking. We've already know what's going to happen. Wanda is in control. And we get to see somewhat of an evilish side of her. And I honestly can't blame her. But we get to see that as she's confronting, you know, Geraldine, Monica Rambeau, she's like, who are you? How do you know about Ultron? And her Scarlet Witch powers start coming out. And she's like, you know, I'm your neighbor, Monica. I'm your neighbor, Wanda. You know who I am. You know, you're not my neighbor and I want you to leave. So she knows that she's a threat. Maybe not like a harmful threat to her, like physically, but just to what she's created. So she basically, we see her push her through all these walls of these houses and now out of the town. So she's like, oh crap. I don't want anybody to notice this. So I'm going to basically act like it never happened. And we see her, you know, basically patch up the holes. And it's at that point, we see her reaction to when Vision comes in, who at this time we see is dead zombie Vision. Yeah, and it scares her. And so she kind of looks away and looks back and makes him, you know, look like she wants him to be. It's that time we learn that she's the one in control. She's the one doing this. And then we see Vision, you know, kind of be like, you're saying everything's okay, but something's not okay. I sense something is up, which I find very interesting because if Wanda's in control and Wanda is basically using her thought processes to fill these people, maybe, it's very weird that Vision has this much autonomous, you know, free thought. Or is it more that Wanda has brought him back to life? That's the question. That's what we're going to find out probably within this series. But it's very interesting to see that, you know, even through the teaser trailer for the next episode, that we see that Vision is trying to figure out what's going on and how to get out of this world, you know, because he says that to Wanda at the end of the episode and she's like, everything we need is right here. Let's sit down and watch TV. And he's kind of like, okay, you're crazy. And then they sit down and watch TV and we're kind of like, it becomes eerie. This is what we've been asking for. This is what we want, because we're starting to see that Wanda has basically preserved herself from harm. And I understand that. I understand that she's lost her brother, she lost Vision, she lost whatever relationship she thought she had with Iron Man and with Avengers. You know, Black Widow's gone. It was a big battle that they had to do with Thanos. You know, it's a lot of trauma. It's a very traumatic experience that she's gone through. So she's just like, I'm done with the world. I'm going to protect myself. And so she doesn't want to ruin that. And especially now that she's got Vision back, whether he's back for good or not, and now that she's created kids for herself, which we still don't know how she did that, it's interesting to know that she doesn't want to lose any of that. It's what's making her happy at this moment. So anything that's trying to do that's going to be a threat, even if they're good guys or bad guys. So it's really going to be interesting to see how she just works as hard as she wants to protect that from being taken from her. And then when she does, when it is taken from her, all heck is going to break loose. And that's what we want to see. So I'm super excited. I thought this episode was very short. As you can tell, the notes are very short. I just basically ran through everything. And the only thing I really left with from this episode is we still don't know who Agnes or Dottie are. And we still don't know if it's just Wanda who's in control. Like, we realize that she's the one doing a lot of these things, but we don't know how she got there and who helped her or allowed her to be there. You know, there's still the witches theory that a lot of people are thinking about, that maybe Agnes is a witch, maybe Dottie is a witch. We don't know. Maybe they're helping her kind of keep this world going. We don't really know. I mean, it would kind of make sense based off of episode 3. You know, everybody was trying to figure out what Agnes told her about when he was, you know, hedging the cement block. You know, hey, don't tell Vision this. You know, what was he going to say? So it became this big old thing online, everybody having all these theories. And so maybe that's what it was, like, hey, shh. Or maybe it was like, hey, we don't want her to know that we know, or something like that. You know, maybe it was something like that. We still don't know. I'm sure we'll find out eventually. It'd be kind of cool if we have an episode from Agnes's perspective. That'd be kind of cool. So then we know there's maybe like a third party involved. Maybe it's Mephisto, maybe it's not, but we'd know how it became to be. Maybe we'll get that. We still have the 80s and the 90s, which would make sense if there's 5 episodes left. We're not going to get 5 more decades. So maybe we will get, you know, an Agnes perspective, or maybe an Agnes and Dottie perspective, and then also go ahead and get the other sitcoms, you know, whatever they may be. It seemed like there was one in the teaser that I saw of her kind of having like a Modern Family one. So maybe that'll be like the last one or semi-last one before, you know, it leads right all up into the MCU. So if you've seen episode 4, what are your thoughts? I overall really enjoyed this episode, even though it was short. I feel like it gave us a lot to go off of, and I really enjoyed seeing the meta other side of the perspective to see how we got up to this point. So I would totally rate this episode 4 out of 5. It's not completely perfect because it was so short. Why was it so short? But it has still is keeping me hanging on and wanting to see what's happening next week. And so episode 5, I'm ready. Bring it. Let's do this. If you like this video, guys, make sure you hit that like button. If you want more like this one, make sure to subscribe to the bell. And I'll see you guys next time on the Mashup.